to build on that, I think, especially with young people today, and I say that as someone who's in his early 30s, so I still regard myself as relatively young. I think what we've seen, the people that perform the best are the ones that have had a sustainable career over a long term, whether it's in your own business or in a large corporate. So actually, there's no immediate rush to have to get everything within 2-3 years, right? I think we've spoken about during this discussion about things that we've gone on to achieve, but we hope that this is 5% of what we'll do over the next 40 years. And I think that shift over the last 5 years of, okay, it's great to have a milestone of however many properties by 30 or whatever by 40 and this by 50. But actually, if you just extend the game and you start to look at it, to your point that you were saying earlier, Pabilo, about skill set, service, then the game becomes so much bigger, becomes so much more enjoyable. And then the goals that you start working towards become naturally bigger as well. I think naturally online, if you're going online and someone's telling you that you should quit your job and you should do this, you should do that, and jobs are not a good thing. I mean, you need to think, if you're really in the business space, right, you're going to want to develop your own leaders within your organization. The last thing that I want to tell people within my own organization is what you're doing is a waste of time, blah, blah, blah. Because ultimately, if I'm the great leader that I want to be, if they have that personality and that path, want to stay and develop further. So I'd be very conscious of people that are saying those particular messages and just try and think about, again, what's coming down to it. What is it that you want to do? Why do you want to do it? And as long as that's not influenced by other things and it's really tied to what you want to do over a long enough period of time, then it will work out.
Yeah, it's understanding where you're best at, you know, because I think, personally speaking, I think I definitely got to a stage in my career where I was like, I'm not the best at what I do here. And perhaps I was obviously working on eventually having an exit, but I think there's two things I'm trying to pay attention to. One, I'm trying to achieve more meaning in my journey, in my steps. And this is for me personally speaking. So I remember someone saying to me, do you want this to be your life's work? As in just having this 40-year career. And I thought, I would like to probably experience different things. And that comes back to different experiences, different skill sets. And then understanding what you're great at. There are some people that are extremely well positioned to be a number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we need those people in position. And there are some people that are destined to be a number 1 to then be able to lead 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so I think it's all about understanding who are you and what is it that can make you tick. Because if you can add value in an organization, they will remunerate you very well. And so wealth is not an issue, right? And also we think about, you know, the power of getting equity with some of these companies. I think the thinking that you can only create wealth as an entrepreneur by yourself is a myth, because we know the numbers that top executives have been able to support working at that level and building that career. So that's why I say I think money it's not just the money. It has to be experience, skill set, and meaning. So I think people should look inwards way more than they're looking outwards, consume less, and understand what is it that makes me tick, and speak proudly about that, as opposed to saying, you know, I want to do what you're doing because it looks cool. But I can make anything look cool. You can make anything look cool. So I think that's what I would like people to do. Now, if you're someone listening to say, look, I've had enough. I need to make a move out because I think I just need to. Then you develop a plan. You know, start something, test it a number of times before you give up. You know, because in effect, the way I looked at it, the company that I worked for was paying me to build a portfolio. I was just smart enough to shift the money from here to here, as opposed to taking it and spending it. So actually, the company you're working for can finance your next move. So to your point, don't be in a rush to leave, because you might have a really good thing going for a number of years before you do it. What would you say are some of the things that perhaps people can look forward to once they then become? No, I'd probably say actually, because it's a double-edged sword, independence, and I want to dive into that, you know, with you. We both tasted it, and so what would you say? There are pros. There are benefits to it. It's a different lifestyle compared to building a corporate career. But what are the pitfalls? So maybe a little bit on the pitfalls in terms of having too much time.
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think maybe if you play that scenario out with another avatar. So let's say you're someone that actually you've known from day one, I want to try business X and I want to get into it as soon as possible. I've already met people that are already in the space, so I'm motivated. So let me get into it, right? Now, once you're in it, and you're experiencing it, I think if you're in that feeling where you just want to have that experience, whether it's financial independence or your own business or whatever, and you're very clear on what you want to do and also very clear on what you don't want to do, then, okay, if you're 100% sure, then jump into it. And then once you're into it, you do need to recognize that you will have more time because you're not in the corporate space anymore. With that time means that you have even more time to think. You've got more time to plan, to execute. But I think the learning that I've developed, and I say even we've developed, is once you're in that space, it becomes even more important to take consistent action over a longer period of time and not allowing that extra time to fester. Because naturally, like anything, right? If you're given more time, okay, it's been great that I've traveled lots. I got married recently, been able to go to everywhere that I wanted to go to. But then after that, the work still needs to be done.
Correct. Yeah,
and you can't rely on other people to do all of that while you're doing what you want to do. So it becomes even more important that you need to consistently show up, have the right personal habits, and have the hygiene factors of working out, exercise, all of these things, right? Because it comes down to you. In a large company, then if you don't do it, chances are someone else will probably cover or can help make it better, etc. But when you're on your own, you are the person all the invoices come to. I've had to say yes to capital expenditure of hundreds of thousands when I've only got £50,000 in my bank. I'm the only one that's going to have to figure that out, right? So these are the things that you don't typically see because obviously online, no one's going to project that. These are the things you need to develop. And I think for me personally, going through a phase of independence is important because that's something that I always wanted to taste.
Yes. See, it's
And
the
now,
experience.
The experience, to your point. Now, irregardless of the outcome, now that I've had that experience, there's things that I've learned, the things that I have loved the experience, the things that I would have done differently. But again, it comes down to the experience. And if you play this game over a 30, 40, 50-year horizon, all of this leads to the next thing anyway. So that's probably some of the reflections of having that time. Again, it's a luxury problem to have. A lot of people maybe get that time later on in their career when they're 60 or 70, and that's why you go through a phase then where you have like a reckoning. But I think it's also a gift, but you do need to treat that gift with respect because it can easily go left if you want it to. But how has it been for you?
So I'll cover the sort of the watch out items before talking about what's beautiful about independence. I think before you get to that milestone, you just think about, how life will be, and I've got all this time to do what I want to do, and then I have the choice, and that's real wealth, which it is. But then I'll just do what I want whenever I want. And some people are wired that way. Some people want to be able just to do whatever, whenever. But I think what happens is when you taste financial independence at early age, realize the journey I'm on is only a personal transformation journey. And so if I'm not growing, then I'm declining. And so having too much time on my hands and not being consumed by the right vehicle, what do I do with this time? I need to find a way to fill it. And that was what corporate done. It filled your time. Now, obviously it got to a certain point where you're thinking, okay, I want to work on something else. I want to work on something else more meaningful. So I think the transition is quite challenging because you go from being consumed it's actually more than 5 days a week. Let's keep it honest, in the sense of people are still thinking about work on the weekends. But you're totally consumed. And then you go from a point whereby you've done the right thing. You've got assets that are paying you every single month. Congratulations. And then you're saying, because you're still young, but there's more I know I need to do. This can't be it. And I remember thinking, if this is what retirement feels like, I don't want anything to do with it because I need to keep upgrading my skill set, my mindset, and my service. So that period is quite tricky. And I one of the mentors that has mentored us in property space said, you may experience, anyone that reaches financial independence may experience a level of depression because you're trying to figure out how do you get consumed in the next vehicle, and you're working on that period. So I think that's the watch out item, which is why I would say to people preparing is have a plan to continue working just on your own time, but the work still has to be there. You can obviously enjoy 6 months off or whatever the case may be, but understand that the independence and the freedom, it expires, it runs out. The feeling of, all right, I've relaxed, for the last 3-4 months. I need something to do. You're too young. You're too young to sit around and not do anything. And so I think work is a gift, and I think it's about finding meaningful work, which is what we're all striving for. So I think that's really, you can find yourself spinning plates on days where you've got too much time. You're just managing stuff. You're not creating. You're not growing. And so it can then turn into a frustration. You start reflecting, like we said, really well, and then your reflections upon reflections upon reflections, and it's like, okay, it's great that I can think and I've got time to think, but now where's the next vehicle that I can jump in and be consumed by and be stretched by? And I think that's what I'd like to think most people are looking for, whether it's corporate career or actually my own business that I'm trying to run and build. So that's probably some watch out items that I would, encourage people to look into. Have a plan, not just to leave, but also once you've left, what's the work you've scheduled for yourself? Because that free time, whilst it's nice in the beginning, it can turn on you, and then you're losing ground on where you should be. So that's sort of what it was like in the early stages. But then there's also a beautiful part about it, which when I look back, I think to myself, I'm so glad I saved how I saved. I'm so glad I invested. You know, what have been the perks? You spoke about there are more challenging days than high days, but the high days can sort of offset the days that are tough. But what are the other sort of benefits or sweet moments that you say it was worth going on this journey to experience this?
Yeah, so I mean, I think between us, we've got lots of milestones that we can share. But I think for me, it was being able to have the means to buy my parents their dream home, being able to develop myself to become a better person individually, which allowed me to meet my wife when I did together and have all the experiences I've been able to have with her
On your own time.
in my own time. To be able to have the freedom to keep investing in my development, and recently getting the opportunity to go to America for a dream opportunity that I would never have had the time, capacity, space to even think about until recently. Being able to also, through the business that I've created, bring my brothers on board, where we've also been able to invest in their own development and their leadership journey as well. So whether that's funding one of them to go into university, or whether that's helping the other to develop his career with an external qualification, these are things that as a business it's great to do for your employees. But when those people that you're working with are actually your family members, it becomes even more powerful as well. So again, these are the ups that outweigh the challenging times. And these are things that you can't really put a price on, right?
No.
And these are things that are only coming to fruition now because of decisions we made 10 years ago, coming back to the conversation that we had now. So I think the reflection I had recently about all of this is, what are the decisions that we need to make now that make our life even easier 10 years from today? And the difficult decision of 10 years ago of going to Switzerland when it didn't really make sense, or saying yes to an opportunity or a vehicle or an investment class that seems great on paper, but there could be another way to do it. What are those decisions that we can make now that will give us a foundation where 10 years from now we'll do this conversation again and we'll say I'll remember what we were talking about at this point, and then we're glad that we made decision X, Y, Z to lead to another outcome. But I think all of it's anchored around family, self-development, in service of others, and then we go from there. But what's been the moments for you where you've sat back and you've said, okay, I'm glad I made those decisions?
Yeah, for me it's family. That was why, as I mentioned to you before, change comes from pain. Pain first, change after. And so I felt this tension whereby I was like, I need to create a scenario whereby when I have a family, I have more time with them. And it's absolutely priceless to be able to see your children every single morning from they wake up to when they sleep, and just having that time, seeing them run around the house, make a lot of noise, spend time with your wife, that you can't put a price on. And it builds you as a person. It gives you a sense of a layer or a character that you can't get anywhere else. So I think from having independence, and that's what I always wanted to experience. And I'm glad I made the tough decision to save and continue saving to then be in this position. So family and the choice. I think a lot of what we talk about, the choice as to how you want to control your day, how you want to spend your time, who you want to spend your time with, and then choice on what ventures to go after next. And so, but one thing I will say is experiencing independence, have I experienced it now? I probably wasn't ready for it 10 years ago, which is why I've only got it now, or maybe 5 years ago. So I think you get what you get when the time is right. And I think, I was more than happy to work however many hours when it was just myself and Lauren, I had no kids. But at the time of having kids, I was like, hang on, I need to experience what it's like to see them every single day. I'm there too much. Do you get what I'm trying to say? But that was what I wanted. And so that for me, I understand has played an important role. And perhaps I might have a different perspective as they get older.
Sure.
And then maybe I might think about how I want to position my career. But family was a big one. And then being able to taste choice. And there are some days where it just hits me and I just think to myself, we've made a last minute change here, or a last minute move, or I've gone to see someone in a last minute situation because I have the ability to move, right? So that mobility. So I think that's really, I would hope, everyone can at some point get an opportunity to experience that, because then you get an opportunity to think, you get an opportunity to create memories, which I think is the real currency in life. So those are the days where you say it's worthwhile. I've got to take, the challenging stuff and challenging days of being able to drive myself and make sure we keep growing this business. On the other side of things, I've got this stuff that you can't buy. It's priceless.